Hello everybody, my name is Brandon Hopkins. For today, I am going to be your Akamai developer advocate. In this video, we're going to be doing a number of things. First, we're going to touch on linking up your domain name with the domain name manager here on Akamai Connected Cloud. From there, we're going to use the marketplace to spin up a Linode running Docker, and then we're going to spin up multiple services and set up a reverse proxy and SSL certification on each service. Setting up reverse proxy and those certificates on Docker applications is actually a pretty easy and straightforward process, and that is the key point of this video. Additionally, having multiple services on a single Linode is a good cost-saving measure if you want to save a little bit of money. So here I am on my Akamai Connected Cloud dashboard. You can see the current Linode I have running, the services.techhut.tv. I'm actually doing what we're going to do today in this video on that specific Linode. I have I think 3 different Docker containers running some backend services such as analytics, project management, and a few other things. And everything there on the single instance all has their very own domain name and SSL cert. So starting off, I'm going to touch on adding domain names, and it's actually a pretty easy process. You can see I have 2 of them here. For this video and for this demonstration, we are going to be using cloudguide.site. You can see I already have it in here, but actually adding it is a pretty easy and straightforward process. All you do is click on Create Domain. Here you type in your domain name, your email address, and that is about it. You just click Create Domain, and then it will pop up here. Now, for this cloudguide.site, what you're going to have to do from there is actually go to wherever you registered the domain, whether that be Google Domains, Namecheap, GoDaddy, wherever, and set up these as your name servers. And just as an example, this is Namecheap right here. For this under domain, we have name servers, set it to custom, and ns1 through 5 linode.com. And that is all you need to do. Now, for your specific registrar, there might be a different process. It's probably going to look a little bit different, but wherever your domain is registered, they will have their own specific guides and tutorials for how to change your name servers. And I will note, it may take a little while for it actually to propagate and to actually link up properly with Akamai Connected Cloud, anywhere from instantaneously all the way up to, I think it's 48 or 72 hours. So do keep note of that. And later on, I will show you how to check to see if your domain name has actually gone through. Now with that, before we actually create our Linode, we're going to want to generate an API key. This will help us automatically filter in or add in some variables and A records and whatnot. So to do that, we're just going to go over here. We're going to click on API tokens. You can see I don't have any at the moment, but I could just create a personal access token. Here I could call this really whatever you want, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to call it tutorial, giving myself full privileges and create that token. So here's that token. I do recommend you save it, but for now I'm going to use it right away. So I'm just going to give it a copy and close this out. Now from there, we are going to create our Linode. Now this is going to be the virtual server that all of our Docker containers and everything is going to be running on going forward. So to do this, we're just going to go create Linode. And thankfully, there is the marketplace here. There's a bunch of kind of one-click applications, which does a lot of the heavy lifting in the back for us. For example, in this instance, we are going to be using this one right here. What this will do is basically pre-install Docker for us and really optimize it using some of the information that we input to make sure everything works properly, such as the host name and things like that. Now we do have some options for some resources. I'm going to skip that for now. We are going to create a limited sudo user. I'm just going to call it Brandon, give it a pretty decent password. And I do recommend you actually use SSH public keys. It will make it far more secure. But just for this demonstration, I'm going to go with the old school username and password situation. Now, your Linode API token, I just copied that. This is where we're going to want to paste that on in. Now, I'm not going to put in a subdomain. I do want this linked up to the root of the domain, but for one of the Docker containers that we're going to spin up, I'll manually show you how to add a subdomain. Now, this is going to be the cloudguide.site domain. And then from there, we're going to want to input our admin email. I'm just going to use my kind of generic business email. And then from there, we have some options for MS records or MX records and SPF records for sending emails. Might as well say yes to both of them, have it fill that in for us. I will note if you are new to Linode, you may need to request support to allow access to that. They do that for kind of a spam prevention measures. And then from there, we have select images. Now, it doesn't, again, really matter which one you pick. I like to go with the latest version of whatever my preference is. And my personal preference is Ubuntu, purely based on the fact I'm more familiar with it. And then from there, we have our region. Now, this is where the server is actually located. You either want this close to you or close to whomever your target audience is. And recently, they've added quite a bit more options. Before, my main option was US West, which is in California. Seattle is a little bit closer to me, so I'm very happy that they have added more servers as of recent. And then from there, we have our plan. Now, I'm just setting this up for the first time. I'm going to go with the cheapest plan, the Linode 1 GB plan. Now, I will note here that if you are a new user and you use the link down below, you get a $100 60-day credit, which is very nice to help you kind of test things out. So from there, we're going to go ahead and scroll down. We're going to give it a label. And I'm just going to call this the domain. You can call it whatever helps you organize everything a little bit better. But for me, if I do cloudguide.site, I generally name it whatever the associated domain name is. You could add tags if you want to. We are going to want to set up a very strong and secure root password. And there we go. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I do recommend SSH keys. And VLANs are a little bit more advanced. We're not going to worry about that right now. Backups are a fantastic option at $2 a month. This is just a demo, so I'm not going to use it, but if this was actually a production instance that I was doing, I would definitely select that. So let's create our Linode. And there we go. This is our dashboard for this specific Linode. We can see its provisioning, and then we can see it's booting up. Now, one really cool thing about Akamai Connected Cloud is we could go over here and launch the LISH console. What this is going to do is actually give us the opportunity of watching the boot screen and kind of seeing everything that it's doing in the back end. Again, we selected the Docker Marketplace thing, so it is going to install Docker, all the prerequisites and everything that we need to go ahead and be able to just dive right in. What you can see here, it's adding that user I created. It is doing some system links with Docker. It's updating, installing various packages. It's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us. But real quick, just to update, we are going to log in just using this. So type in your limited sudo username and your password. And there we go. So first thing, whenever you boot into a Linux server like this, it's always a good idea to update it. So sudo apt update, and we are also going to run a sudo apt upgrade. Just like that, -y, so as soon as it finishes the update prompt, it will automatically upgrade everything for us. So there we go. It looks like it's going to do a kernel update, so we are going to need to restart the server once it does that. And there we go. New kernel available. We are going to need to restart the system to load it, so I'm going to hit OK. From there, we can restart these services, and there we go. So I'm going to close out of this LISH console, and here I'm just going to reboot this server through our dashboard. So let's reboot the Linode. And again, if you want to, we could actually relaunch that and kind of watch the reboot process if we would like to. And once we are again prompted to log in, I'm actually going to go ahead and close this out, and from here forward, we're going to go and use a local terminal. SSH, type in that limited sudo user. So for me, it was Brandon at the IP address. Now this is our first time connecting to it. It's just verifying, yes, this is our server. And then type in that password. So boom, we are in. Now the very first thing that we are going to do is make sure our domain name is working. And we're going to do that by installing nginx. So if I just do a sudo apt install nginx, just like that, type in our password once more. And we are going to proceed with the installation. There we go. And the install is done. So we are going to check to see if our domain name is working. So open up our web browser, and we are going to go to cloudguide.site. Hit enter. Also, I almost forgot we do need to open up the port so the site can actually access the external internet. So we're going to paste in this command, sudo ufw allow nginx full. What this is going to do is open up the 80 and 443 ports. So let's hit enter, type in our password, and we can see we have added those rules. So now heading over to our web browser, cloudguide.site, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page, and you can see welcome to nginx. Meaning that our domain is completely set up now, and our server is able to communicate to the outside world. Now, one thing I'm going to show you real quick is how to add a subdomain. I'm going to be installing a service called Portainer, and we are going to do this on a subdomain. So heading back over to our domain dashboard for this website, we are going to go down here to the A records. We can see the A records for the root or the main domain name right here, and we're going to create another one for the subdomain using the exact same IP address. If you have a different Linode spun up with separate services on a separate instance, you want to use the IP for that, but everything in this is going to be within one. So we're going to add an A record real quick, paste in the IP address, and from there I'm going to type in what I want the host name to be or the subdomain. In this case, it's going to be Portainer or Portainer. So do that. Click save, and there we go. We'll set that up in just a little bit. Which, speaking of, this is the documents for installing the community edition of a Portainer. I'm going to click on this right here, and this will give us options. We're going to do this as Docker standalone. This is Docker on Linux. And then from there, we have two things we need to run. First, we need to create a volume for the data. So we're going to run sudo and paste that on in, and then hit enter. So we created that volume. And then from there, we have our Docker run command. We can see this is going to be running on the port 8000 as well as the port 9443. This 9443 is how we're going to be accessing it. We have the name as Portainer, restart always. We have it linked up to the Docker socket so we can see all the other containers that we're running, which is the primary kind of purpose of this. And then we have it pointing to that data directory or that data volume that we just created. So let's give that a copy and then run this as sudo. Right click. And then let's go ahead and run that. So it's unable to find the image. It's going to go ahead and pull everything, and it's a pretty lightweight tool, so you can see it is done. Now, headed over to our web browser. We haven't set up a reverse proxy for this specific instance yet, but we can still access it using our main domain here. If we had the port 9443, hit enter. Oh, by default, this is HTTPS, so we are going to need to add that manually. Within Certbot, which is what we're going to be using later, there's an option to have this be automatic for you. So HTTPS, hit enter, and there we go. There's a security risk because there's no certificate yet. So advanced, let's accept the risk and continue. And then real quick, let's just create our new admin account. There we go, username, pretty good password. I'm gonna allow them to get some data. Let's create this user. And there we go. I'm not going to save this for now. If I just go to the home page real quick, we can see our local instance. If I live connect to it, you can see we have one container running, and it is Portainer itself. So now I'm going to show you the process of actually putting this on a subdomain and generating that certificate. Is a pretty straightforward process. I'm going to minimize this for now and head back to our terminal here. And the very first step is going to be creating a basic configuration file for our website within nginx. And we're going to do that by running sudo nano and creating the file within etc nginx and sites available. You can see it's example.conf. You could technically name this whatever you would like. The actual important stuff is within the file. But for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to call it the name of the application. This is going to be the Portainer.conf file. So hit enter, and it's going to open up an empty document. From there, what I'm going to do is paste in a very generic configuration file, which is going to be this right here. Now, all this is going to be available, linked down below if you're interested in just doing some copying and pasting. But we won't really need to change too much here. Server name, we're going to change this to that subdomain. So in this case, it's going to be portainer.cloudguide.site. And then we're going to change these two example texts to Portainer. These are your log files, kind of important if something doesn't go right. Portainer. Now this right here is important. This is your proxy pass. Where is this actually located on a local basis? Now this is on the port 9443, and this is a little unique because it's forcing us to use HTTPS even without a certificate. So we're going to want to add an S right here. You won't really need to do this with other things, which I will show you in just a little bit. But for now, we're going to go ahead and output that, save it. So from there, let's go ahead and exit out. And now what we need to do is, well, first I'll show you. Let's go cd into our etc and into nginx. And if I ls to list the directories, we can see we have sites available and sites enabled. We just created that configuration file in the sites available folder. And what we need to do is link it to the sites enabled directory. And to do this, it is a simple command. It's sudo ln-s. And then here we're going to want to put the proper, it's not example.conf, it is going to be Portainer.conf. So por tab fills it in for us, hit enter, and now there is a link there. Now nginx is pretty cool. We have a little command, nginx-t, that we can use to check and make sure everything, at least when it comes to the syntax, and the config test is looking good. It is, which is nice. Now from there, we're going to want to reload nginx. This is done with a systemctl reload command. So let's go ahead and hit enter. Didn't throw out any errors at us, which is very good. And I believe it's right now that we could actually test to see if it is working. This is our current kind of view using the port. The port will still work, but I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that and instead add the Portainer subdomain. which that's not going to work because within the configuration file we had it set to port 80. So if I get rid of the S in this case, hit enter, it's going to work completely fine. But we don't want to do that. We need HTTPS and a certificate. And setting that up with the confirmation that it's actually working is another really easy task. We are going to need to install 2 packages, and it is Certbot and Python 3-Certbot nginx. So hit enter, and then we're going to want to proceed with the installation. There we go. And now to actually generate the certificate, we are going to use this command. And not only will it generate the certificate, it's actually going to edit that initial kind of generic configuration file that we were just messing around with to work properly and automatically redirect and all that. So I'm going to change this real quick. Your domain here probably is not going to work. So I'm going to do portainer.cloudguide.site. Hit enter. And now here we're going to want to put in our email address associated. This will send you like emails when you need to renew it. There's other scripts and stuff that you could have running in the background to automatically renew it for you, which I do recommend. Different video for that. Let's hit enter. So have we read the terms of service? You should do that. I have. And do we want to share our email? I'm going to say no because I already have as well. So now you can see it is requesting the certificate, it is deploying, and there we go. It's as easy as that. So now if we head over to HTTPS, hit enter, you're going to see it's going to load up completely fine, and we have our certificate. Absolutely beautiful. And just to show you kind of an example, if we go up a couple commands, let's do the sudo nano portainer, just like this. We can see it's looking a little bit different than when we edited it. We can see some of the initial information, but down here, all this was added by Certbot, pointing to our certificates and all that, looking good. So let's go ahead and close out of there. And just as another example, let's go ahead and just spin up another Docker container real quick and just run through that process again. We're going to be using this OhMyForm. It's a really simple form tool that you can send out, have people fill out, give you information. We're going to be doing a dedicated video on this a little bit later. But if I head over to documentation, we're just going to go Docker quick start, and let's head over to the example configurations. And we're just going to set up the minimal instance. So I'm going to open up Docker Compose here and just grab all of this. So Control C, and now I could actually use my kind of protected Portainer instance to do this. And the Portainer demo isn't really the purpose of this video, but it is really cool how easy I just live connect to our local instance, go over to stacks. Let's create a new stack and call it form. Paste this on in. Let's give this a little scan. So this is going to be going into .data. That should be fine. And I'm not going to dive into all this too much for now, but all this looks good. It's running on these ports right here, 8080 and 3000. So let's go ahead and deploy it. So let's scroll down here, deploy the stack. And while it deploys, let's head over here and we are going to create a new A record. First, let's actually copy our IP address, new A record, paste in the IP address, and then we're just going to call this form. Hit save. We can see that's in there now. So we could go check up on this. It does look like it's successfully deployed. If we go over to our dashboard, containers, we have 2 containers running. So if I go to a different tab here and let's paste in our just generic domain and go to the port 8080, we can see the instance is running here. So let's go ahead and actually set everything up real quick. And because it's basically the same process, I could reuse a lot of these commands. So sudo nano, I'm going to call this OhMyForm, that's the name of the application. Again, paste in our generic thing going on here, and we are going to change the server name to form cloudguide.site, and we saw this was on the port 8080, so we're going to want to change that in this instance. We don't have to change that to HTTPS at the moment. And of course, let's change these example logs, OhMyForm and OhMyForm. So Control O to output that. Let's exit out, and then we are going to want to create the link. So if I type O tab, there it is, hit enter, and then let's reload nginx. So if I go over here to check it, getting rid of the port and adding the form subdomain, hit enter, there it is without the certificate. And in this case, we already have it installed, so we won't need to do that again. And here's the command. So all I need to do is change the subdomain to form, hit enter. We can see it's requesting the certificate. It's used the email in our previous prompts to be able to skip all that. and it's generated. So now, refreshing that, you can see our connection is now secure. It automatically routed us to HTTPS. And then if we want to, we can log into this. There we go. So that is how you do it. That is how you spin up Docker containers and quickly put it behind a subdomain reverse proxy with a SSL certificate. Now, of course, you do not need to use subdomains. I'm going to set up a different Docker container as the main domain, but you just do all the same stuff without the subdomain. It's really as easy as that. Of course, do subscribe, ring that bell so you do not miss our future uploads. There are a ton of good stuff coming out, and check the backlog. There are a bunch of videos on this channel going over all kinds of cloud computing tutorials, concepts, and more. So again, all the information I talked about in this video will be linked down below. And with all that, I do hope you have an absolutely beautiful day, and goodbye.